What's some popular self-care/self-love advice that is actually really toxic? Be who you are is only good advice if you're a good person. A lot of people take this to mean that literally anything and everything about yourself is above criticism, and yeah, it's super effing toxic. It's basically don't improve yourself. If people don't like you for who you are, that's their problem. No, sometimes you're the asshole. 910 The common denominator rule stands. If you run into an asshole every now and then, that's normal. If everyone you interact with is an asshole, you're the asshole. My dad's version of this was, if everywhere you go smells like dog shit, it's probably on your shoe. I lived through this nightmare when I was first stretching my ears. After I'd found my sweet spot and bought a gauge I liked, I started smelling this awful bin smell wherever I went. I knew I was clean, showered, wore clean clothes, so I was absolutely baffled and had no idea why everywhere had this gross smell. I didn't realize that you have to take out plugs at least once every few days to give them a quick wash or they get all icky. That was a lesson I've never forgotten. Positive vibes only, you just need to stay positive. People use it because they think it's uplifting, but it's actually quite dismissive. Often people say it when people voice sadness, frustration, emotional fatigue, anger, basically any other emotion but happiness. A positive attitude can get you a long way, but so can acknowledging and letting yourself others feel emotions. Edit, okay, wow, this blew up in a way I'd never have imagined. Firstly, thank you for the rewards, this is bizarre. Secondly, to all those having a hard time, and/or have people in their lives dismissing them with this stuff, I'm sorry that you're going through it. I hope and wish there will be better times around the corner for you soon. Third, my original edit is now in a reply to this post because on review it seemed too long. If you're interested, it's there somewhere. If not, cool. Toxic positivity. 100%. I have a friend who tries way too ducking hard to find the positive in absolutely everything. Sometimes you just need to let things be. Not everything has to have a happy ending or a silver lining. Approaching things that way is exhausting and takes away from hardening the fuck up and learning from tough situations. I always tell people to watch the Pixar movie Inside Out. It does such a great job of portraying sadness, and all other emotions aside from happiness, as important and nothing bad at all. It's okay to feel sad because it's a part of life. Bing Bong wipes tear. He might be imaginary, but these tears aren't. It's not really advice, but it's popular for people to label themselves as brutally honest. Honesty is good, but beware of people who are more interested in the brutality than the honesty. I once read something that said honesty without kindness is cruelty, and I think about that a lot when I'm deciding whether or not to say something. This. And kind is not the same thing as nice, that was one that made me think too. Say more about it. What is the difference? English is not my first language. In terms of language, they're often interchangeable. That's very kind of you and that's very nice of you would be taken to mean the same thing. The difference between kind and nice is more of a philosophical one, but generally nice is something like polite. It's nice to refill the coffee maker at work after you've used the last of the beans. It's nice to hold a door open. Mostly external actions. Being kind is when you're genuinely caring for others. You listen to them, you do nice things for them just because you notice they're having a hard time lately, that kind of thing. It's like an internal attitude towards others. Live your truth. There is a fine line between authenticity and being an asshole. I've yet to meet a person who uses "I'm speaking my truth" who didn't clearly mean I don't care how incorrect or hurtful what I'm about to say is. If you don't accept it, you're disrespecting me. Edit, to clarify, since some replies are bringing up specific people. I don't know much about celebrities. I was mostly thinking of a former coworker who would use the phrase constantly when being blatantly wrong but still expecting to be accommodated for her preferred reality. Yep, it's more like, I only live in my truth, the rest of the world be damned if they don't align. The how not to give a duck nonsense. I agree, don't give a fuck what people think if you enjoy a certain type of music. But do give a fuck about how your actions affect other people. Unfortunately, it seems that many people just take it to mean don't care that you might hurt other people. In order to self-care and self-love, it is important to consider what consequences your actions have on the world around you. There is a whole industry built around what I call narcissism as self-help. It essentially boils down to everyone else is wrong, you're always right, the only problem you need to fix is that you care too much about what other people think. There is definitely something to be said for people who are far too self-conscious, but social interaction is a core concept for being a healthy, happy human. You aren't going to find happiness by turning into a sociopath. The problem is that the type of advice that you give an anxiety-ridden introvert is not the same type of advice that a Kardashian needs to hear. This is it exactly. I'm the kind of person that really needs to hear it's okay to believe you know better than other people sometimes. It took me about 3 years of therapy to get to it's okay to feel angry if someone constantly messes you around. However, if you take a person who already thinks they know best about everything, and who gets angry at the least imagined slight, and you give them this advice, then it just makes them even more obnoxious. Like on Community when Jeff got put on medication to raise his self-esteem when that's the last thing he needed lol. It was anxiety meds when anxiety was the only thing keeping his ego. Stop texting people first to see who your friends are. What if they're doing the same thing and you just ended a friendship due to a misunderstanding? Edit, okay, this blew up more than I thought. There's a lot of people saying, well, what about in this scenario? What about this? What about this? And thing is, in some scenarios this is good advice. But in a lot of cases this is terrible advice. Like yes, if you're the only one doing work in the friendship then maybe you should reevaluate it. But it also could be someone is going through something that you don't know about and they really don't want to talk to anyone at that time. So what I was really trying to say is that this isn't a solution for everyone. It's really just a solution for some. Any form of testing your relationships like that is basically heading towards abuse territory. Imagine if a guy decided to stop responding to his girlfriend to see if she loves him enough. Yeah, no. I will say though, there's a difference between people deciding to do a test and people that realize they're the only one putting effort in and get tired. Relationships should be reciprocal, but they should also just be driven by want for interaction. If you text first all the time but feel fine about your relationship, then it is a fine relationship just the way it is because that's how you're compatible as people. But if you feel you need more back from that person, it's not compatible the way it is. Ooh, this is a good point. I had a friend like this, where I was always the one asking to make plans. Eventually he stood me up for plans one night and I decided ball was in his court. I haven't heard from him in 2 years. Good riddance emo edit. This was the last straw after several conversations on the topic of do you secretly not want to spend time with me, why do you never reach out first, and what love languages should I be listening for, along with a notable hiking incident described below. It's worth it to have that conversation so you don't lose good friends who may be struggling or socially anxious. That was not the case with this guy. I had a friend who couldn't say no for some reason. Turns out, he didn't enjoy the things I took him to and I'd been annoying him all along. Finally got the hint when he stopped showing up at all, lol. Ignore the haters. Sometimes the haters are people who love you and want to warn you of potential pitfalls, such as MLMs, cults, abusive relationships, etc. Update. A few people are saying that the definition of haters is, essentially, only people who are hating for the wrong reasons. I agree that's what this advice intends to communicate. Basically, don't pay any attention to people who project consistent irrational negativity your way. My concern is that this phrase is so easily misapplied as a self-love mantra which ultimately serves to keep some vulnerable people from listening to the valid and well-intentioned concerns of loved ones. It can be used by a manipulative person to keep victims' vulnerable followers in line. I like haters gonna hate better because it implies there is a pattern. Like, oh that person is always hating so of course they're hating now. But if your sister is usually supportive, and definitely not a hater by nature, and is suddenly very concerned that your relationship is abusive, listen up. I think it comes down to the idea that you have, arguably, more to lose by disregarding a well-intentioned friend than by paying attention to an ill-intentioned one. I appreciated the feedback and did not find any of you to be haters. Smile. Do whatever feels right. Sometimes what feels right is cutting your veins open, but that's not gonna heal you. Therese, also the problem that sometimes we have to go through some unpleasant things in the short term to get worthwhile benefits in the long term. If you always avoid things that make you uncomfortable, you're probably stunning your own growth. Most of the personal development I've achieved in the past couple of years was found exactly that way. That one thing I didn't want to do was usually what I had to do in order to obtain the long-term results I was searching for. The cave you're scared to enter has the treasures you seek.